Hello, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Sci-Fi Real Talk. I am your host, Jim Mulholland. A very special episode today. Going to discuss a topic I know a lot of our clients have questions about. I know a lot of you probably have questions about, and that is regards to title and how title works in real estate, especially here in the state of Texas. So, two special guests from Chicago Title, David Abrams and Sarah Navarro. Thank you guys for joining us, David and Sarah. Welcome to the show. I appreciate it. Thank you for taking your time on a holiday. You know, I have to admit, I kind of forgot today was a holiday. But yeah, so happy Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day.
That's it.
We got
That's
both.
what they call it now.
We got both.
Yeah.
That's right. You got to mention both. So I appreciate you guys for coming. David, please introduce yourself and let us know, I guess, who you are and what you do at Chicago.
So David Abrams, I'm the founding partner of Abrams, Walton Associates. We're a real estate law firm. We have multiple lawyers and paralegals, and we specialize in real estate and estate planning. So wills, trusts, LLCs, and all things real estate. And we have a close relationship with the Chicago folk. And
nice.
Here is Sarah Navarro, so the president of Chicago Title.
President, thank you. Sarah, yeah, please tell us a little about yourself.
So I have been in real estate for 21 years now.
Nice.
So, yeah. So I started when I was 12.
Oh,
of course,
wow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
No one disagreed with that.
Right. No, absolutely.
so title is always, interesting and keeping things going, and no story is ever the same. So we pride ourselves in, working closely with the law firm and having lots of different ways to handle different scenarios. So
Nice. So you said in real estate for 21 years, like you said?
21 years,
21. So what, I guess, how'd you start? Did you start in title or where?
I started in title, but I started as a receptionist. So
nice.
I have worked my way up as,
Wow.
so.
Okay. And how many different title companies have you worked with?
only 4.
Wow, that's good. Yeah, I know in your business that
Yes.
there's a lot of jumping around.
Yes, there is a
Same as
lot.
mine.
There's a lot of jumping around, but
Right.
no, I'm
That's great.
found my home base now for sure, and I will be retiring from this location. So.
And that's awesome. No, that's great. And your location, actually, I got the website here. So it's Chicago Title Southeast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and what area does that encompass?
So we have 5 locations at this time. We're
Okay.
hoping to continue to grow more. We have here, of course, in Cypress, Edo, Bel Air, Friendswood, and Deer Park.
Okay, nice. So yeah, so a good portion of the Houston area. So that's great. So tell us, I guess, a little bit about. Well, let's just go right into it. Let's talk about what is a title company. What does a title company do? I don't know which one of you guys want to take this, but as a realtor, we know it's you use a title company. Other states use attorneys, and you don't have a title company. So especially people relocating in, they get a little confused. What is a title company? Sellers are always, because that's a fairly big expense. And when we do the net sheets, oh my God, what is this title fee? What are they providing? So let's go to, I guess, first we'll get to the value you provide. Let's discuss that first, and then we'll kind of go from the fees and that kind of stuff first. So what is it, if you were going to tell someone this is what a title company is going to do for you and why it's helpful in the process, what would you tell them, David?
So from a lawyer's perspective, anyone who buys or sells property in Texas should always get a title policy.
Right.
Because otherwise, you don't know if you are fully taking 100% of the property. So what a title policy does in Texas is it ensures that the seller owns 100% and can pass 100% to you. And it ensures that if you don't do a title policy, you just do a title search or you just do a deed, there is always a risk that someone can come out of the woodwork, a second cousin, a lien, there's a million things that we have seen that they call us in to fix as lawyers that could impact the ownership of the property. So what I tell people is you don't drive your car without insurance.
Right.
Owning property is a big investment. Have insurance. And across the board, Texas has promulgated it and set in stone the algorithm on how to price the title policy. So it's the exact same everywhere you go, which is why the state of Texas is encouraging folks to get title policies. So I've helped people without getting title policies before, but I do big disclaimers on it, and I strongly recommend against not getting a title policy. Everyone should.
Right. Yeah. No, makes sense. So how common is it for a title dispute to actually happen? Is that something that maybe once a year? Is that multiple times a month? Is that a common thing, or is that never it's never actually happened? I mean,
So
Never,
we-
Sarah, right?
I wish I could say never. My job wouldn't be so stressful sometimes. No, we get people that come in off of the street all the time, and they bought the property from their cousin, their best friend, their mom, and it's normally never fails. It's always a family, close friend, or somebody that they trusted. They did a handshake. Then they're going to sell it, and the person that they're selling it to is getting a loan. So a lender is not going to provide title, do a loan without title insurance.
right.
And then we have things that we see that we have to go way back. What was the last one? To 1978 and fix, literally just
Oh my God.
last month.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And it was one of the hardest ones I've ever had to go back and take care of it. But it happens.
So did they actually go through you in 1978? Were they Chicago title?
No,
Okay.
they did not have title insurance from 1978. And
question was,
so
okay.
it was.
So then if they don't, then it's just like you're
It
having to get a car fixed without insurance, and you just pay the going rate for
Yes.
getting that fixed. Wow.
And sometimes you can't even fix it. So they'll
No.
call us in to do legal work on them. Sometimes we can fix it. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes you have to go to a court and it's a suit to quiet title. And literally think of it like a lawsuit, and a court declares the vesting. But that's, you're
Wow.
subject to the court, to the docket, to the timeline. I mean, it takes forever.
Wow.
So there are
so that's a big
properties-
expense too, I'm sure. So
Huge.
title insurance is definitely can have some value.
Yes.
Well, and title insurance, as of right now, in my opinion, it's cheaper to get title insurance on a house than it is to pay for your car for a year.
Right. Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
I mean, that's one of the biggest investments that you're ever going to make.
Right.
So why would you not cover yourself and make sure that the biggest purchase you're ever going to make in your life is actually insured?
Right.
It,
Oh, yeah,
it just doesn't
makes
make sense to me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, well, it's good that it's pretty much required for anyone that's doing a normal, typical sale. I've never not used a title company. Man, I didn't know people didn't use a title company in Texas. That was news to me. But no, it's great that it's
Most times, like she was saying, it's between family members.
Got
They
it.
don't want to, or they just don't know.
there.
And it's just past, like she said, handshake deals, and they don't mean anything anymore.
Right. Yeah. So I know on a closing statement you have owner's title policy, but then you also have lender's title policy. What would the difference be between those two?
It's exactly like it says. Lender covers the lender, owners covers the owner.
So
But
it's
it's the
just
same policy.
It's the same
same
policy.
policy. It's just so why would the lender need their own policy?
Well, the lender is going to ensure that if they have to foreclose, that they are covered.
Okay,
And same
makes
thing,
sense.
the owner, they're going to be covered. So it's
Right.
basically two policies under one umbrella.
Because
Okay.
the lender doesn't necessarily care about the owner. The lender wants to make sure their investment
covered,
is safe
right.
and protected.
Makes
so
sense.
they want to be the only insured on it.
Right.
They're not going to add themselves as an additional insured.
Got
so they want
it.
a lender's policy with
Yep.
their name,
Right.
and then
Right.
the owner has an owner's policy with their name.
Right. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, and it's just a one-time fee, right? I mean, you pay it one time. It's not like a car or health or homeowner insurance. You just pay it at closing, and it
Well, you
covers
pay
you.
it at closing, and then if you go to refinance, as long as you're
Right.
refinancing within a 7-year time period, you get an R8 credit. And the closer to that first year, the higher the credit.
Oh, I didn't know
So,
that. Okay, so your policy is less if you that's important now because so many people will closing with a high interest rate want to refi here pretty quickly after. So your title policy is actually going to be less if you do it. Oh, I didn't know that either. That's good to know.
Think of it like the title policy has a 7-year term, and the longer you are away from the old policy, the more expensive it gets until
Right.
it caps out.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes
Which
sense.
makes sense from a risk
Yeah.
mitigation
Yeah.
standpoint.
Okay. Well, that's good to know too, because people always ask us if we refi, what are the fees? And hey, you gotta, you don't have realtor fees, but you will have title fees and appraisal fees and some other fees. But it's good to know that your title fee would be less if you do that pretty quick. Okay. No, that's good. So in terms of other fees. So there's always, I have my little sheet, my net sheet that I do when I have people buying or selling a house, and it's always title policy, agent fees, and then just miscellaneous. But there's a lot of miscellaneous fees, right? I mean, like courier fees and dock fees, and I guess, a couple questions. One, how does a title company make money? Is it all coming from the title policy, or some of those fees? I know there's some other escrow type fees that I'm assuming is what you guys get paid. So that was always my people ask me that is, how do title companies get paid? And I was like, it's somewhere in those fees. So what is it that, how do you guys get paid? And two, what are the other fees doing that some of these buyers and sellers are paying for?
So to separate the fees, this really breaks it down into title fees, legal fees, and reimbursement fees.
Okay.
So a lot of those miscellaneous fees will be recordings.
Got it.
Those are charged dollar for dollar to the county, and then they're being reimbursed by the client, right? Or if there's a FedEx, or like you said, a courier, it's reimbursing the cost that's already spent, or the HOA fees, stuff like that. Legal fees, it's the deed, or lender docs, or lien releases, or sometimes we don't even know. The title is like an onion. Once you open up title, you could find a million problems, you could find none.
Right.
So it could be clean from a legal side or very, very messy. And so that's the cost to perfect and clean title. Usually it's a seller's fee, and that fixes it. The third types of fee are the title fees, right? It's the title premium, the cost for the insurance.
Yeah.
And then there's the escrow fee, which is the cost for the title team to do the work, to go through, to clear liens, to shepherd everybody through the process and sign everybody at the table.
Okay.
So those are the three. Would you agree with that? The three main categories on a closing statement.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And our office does not have a lot of miscellaneous or junk fees. We really don't. We pride ourselves in customer service and trying to keep the cost to a minimum. And so we're not going to charge clients a bunch of extra fees and courier fees and we don't have any PIN, which I won't say that on there what that actually stands for, but we honestly we literally charge most of the time what we are being charged. So the recording fees, we're going to charge exactly what we are being charged for that. If we do have a courier fee, most of the time we kind of eat that for the convenience of our clients. So we charge very minimal, especially compared to the average.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. And let's go a little bit through the process of purchasing a house or selling a house, or the process with a title company. So, as a realtor, we get a contract, and let's assume in this case we're not doing a family deal. We're going through a real estate professional. So we get a home under contract. We send over the contract and everything to title, and then it's always we're going to open title. What is open title?
Can I actually take that a step earlier for a second?
Please do.
What we say at the law firm is that if you're a listing agent and you get a house under a listing agreement with a seller, if you ever find out that there is a divorce or a death or something just a little weird about that, we always tell people to reach out to the title company immediately and open title.
Before,
because a lot
makes
of times,
sense, yes.
From a setting expectation standpoint, you will have a buyer on the hook, and then you send a contract to title, and let's say there is a ton of liens to clean. Let's say there are minors in title. Let's say there's a divorce. Let's say there's airships because someone died. It could be a million different things. You could potentially lose the buyer because the seller doesn't have enough time to get all these things done that they need to get done.
Interesting.
So
that's a good point.
We always say, when you can, call Chicago, call Sarah and her teams, and open title so that we can see what's in that onion.
Right.
And if it's clean, great. If it's not, at least we can start working on the process. She'll engage our law firm. We can work on the process so that when you have a buyer, it can be quick and easy.
Yeah.
So
Makes
let's
sense.
assume all that happens. You get a contract with a buyer. Now, Sarah, open title.
Open title. What are we doing? And who's working?
So once we get a contract over, we're gonna get everything open, start the process, send out earnest money receipts, send out contracts, introduce ourselves to both sides so all parties know who to be expecting, to be reaching out. And we get the ball rolling from there, and then from that point we have to make sure that the Schedule C items are clean. If there's any notices on Schedule B, we're going to send that to all parties too. Got to start ordering payoffs, and hope to definitely close within less than 30 days or whatever timeline y'all are needing. We do pride ourselves in that too. We are actually really good at getting, if everything's clean and you're needing a quick close, and we're going to do our best to make sure that happens.
What's your record on the fastest close you've done?
3 days.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great.
She's good. She's good.
It's nice when you got a good cash buyer and a clean title.
I
Oh, it
actually
wasn't a
don't-
cash buyer.
I actually don't think it was clean, the one, because I remember her calling me on it.
It was not clean, and it was not a cash buyer.
Really?
And,
Oh,
man,
my
yeah,
goodness.
I felt like I was up for 3 days straight.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yes.
So when we open title and you do all the research to get all the title information, who within a particular branch, is it the escrow officer who does that? Is it a assistant?
We have a whole team.
Okay.
And so there's a lot that goes involved behind the scenes, and we do our best to try to make sure that you guys only know about what is needed to know about, so that you guys can keep going and keep selling and not worry about what we have going on behind the scenes. But yeah, we have escrow assistants, we have processors, we have escrow officers. So, I mean, it is a whole team working on everything, and each person is just as important as the next.
Yeah.
The goal, Sarah and her team, they're like ducks, right? They're furiously paddling under the surface, but everything looks smooth.
It
and
does.
calm.
Yes.
It really does. Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
Just to go a little bit deeper on it, and a lot of people don't know this, when you open title and Sarah's teams they'll look at the address, they will submit it to what's called an abstract plant. It's part of our examining team, and an abstract plant is the one that will search the property. So most people think, okay, 123 Main Street, that's actually a legal address. It's not, right? 123 Main Street is most likely lot, pick a number, 2 of block 4 of Highlands Village, and it goes on. That is the full legal that will show the volume and page number or film code, right? Once we have that information, you don't need to pull that. We will pull it.
Right.
The title team will. Once it's pulled, the abstract plant searches in that county everything they can find. But they search the property, they search the people, the buyers and the sellers, for IRS liens, for judgments, for anything you could think of. And then they create the commitment that you guys are so used to seeing, right?
Okay.
We have the Schedule A, Schedule B, Schedule C, and
Right.
D, right?
Right.
That is all created by our examining team. Once we have that, the examining team will say, okay, this is what we need to have done in order to issue a title policy. That's when Sarah and her group will go through it and shepherd everybody through the process and get all the necessary ducks in a row, to use the duck analogy, and to clean everything and then sign everyone at the table.
Okay.
Now, part of the experience that she goes through is with examining, they also have a team called underwriters that are lawyers that work for the title company, but they are also, their job is to gauge risk with the law. So there's the law, and then there's the risk of title above the law, and they're making judgment calls. A lot of times, of course, title company, they don't want claims. They want to minimize and mitigate risk. So Sarah and her team will call us in as a law firm, and we will help and push on these lawyers and say, hey, well, I mean, we're talking about a $20,000 file. How much risk is there? It's a drop in the bucket. And we can push them with legal arguments to get them where they need to be. Doesn't always work, but that's one of the ways they use us.
Okay. Awesome. No, that's great.
And just to add to that as well, we do not search divorce decrees unless you tell us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also do not probate court. We have to know that someone is deceased. We have had an issue one time where my seller remarried the lady with the exact same name after his wife passed away.
Oh my
And
God.
we did not know that she was passed or that he remarried the exact same person.
Oh,
So when-
wow.
He clearly has a type back there.
Right.
Yeah.
Clearly.
So when he got to the closing table, he was like, "Oh, she doesn't need to come. That's my other wife.
She's dead."
She's dead."
Oh
And,
my God.
you know, we send out certain forms for you guys to let us know these things. But if we do not get them back or nobody ever responds to us, no matter how many times we reach out or we try, you know, just to verify that this is your wife, this is, you know, you're still married to this person. And there's lots of process that, you know, I need the help of the seller or the buyer to confirm things. And if we do not get that confirmation, then we sometimes end up with the wrong wife at the table.
Right.
So-
Oh my goodness. That's
Yes.
crazy. Yeah, it reminds me. I had a closing once where we were signing, or they're signing, and then one of the standard questions have you been married since you've owned this house? And my client was like, yes, married and divorced. And like, oh, we don't have your ex-wife's name. What was her name? He goes, what was her name? We're all was sitting here like,
Wow.
like, you don't remember your ex-wife's name? He's like, it's on the tip of my tongue. He's like, no, I don't know her name. And the escrow officer is like,
We kinda need to know that.
Yeah,
Yes.
we got to know this information. And it's like, I'm sorry, guys. I don't. So put the whole thing on hold. And she went into the back and did some kind of research. I don't know what they do in the back of a title company, but she went in the back and click, click, click. And it probably took almost an hour. And we're 30 minutes to an hour just sitting there. And finally she goes back, I got it. Her name is blah. And he's like, yes, that's it. I'm like,
That's
oh
crazy.
my God.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of interesting
We see
things
a
at
lot.
closing.
A lot at the closing table.
That story that you just said is a prime example of why buyers should never buy without title insurance. Mm-hmm. Because like in Texas, a community
Right.
property state,
Right.
And if we didn't have the title company didn't have that ex-spouse's signature or explanation as to why she or he is not signing those documents, that person could technically have a claim on that house.
Right. Wow.
Right?
That's
'Cause
true.
community property. So
Right.
as a buyer, you want to make sure these things are clear. And
Yeah.
if you're buying without it, it's insane.
Right. Yeah. Risky.
You know, and that's one of the other reasons why they search. People don't realize this also. I can have an IRS judgment against me or a lien against me, and they haven't filed it on the house yet, and they can still file it on the house after I transfer. There's you can't just escape that. It doesn't
Right.
work like that, right? There's
Right.
the Medicare Estate Recovery Act, right?
Wow.
If your elderly family member is using state funds to pay for their medical care, that could be a lien on the house, and that could affect future buyers. So it's so important to get that done.
Yeah. That's interesting. Crazy. So we had talked about a couple times the title commitment. You guys have mentioned that, and that's always kind of a confusing thing. I know when we get that, that in the email, people always say, you know, we ask, did
What
you
is
look?
this?
Yeah, right, exactly. What am I supposed to be looking? And usually Schedule C, I think, is the kind of the one I want to make sure is right. Is
B
that
and C.
B and C? So can you just go through what's the difference? Because I don't really know that much.
Well, I think we should split this up in that Sarah can talk about what they look at, and
Okay.
I can tell you as a lawyer what I recommend you guys look at, or
Perfect.
the clients look at.
Yeah.
You want to start?
Perfect.
So for Schedule C, for Schedule A, we're going to look at the names. We're going to make sure that who is selling my property is who is on my contract as well. So that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
And for Schedule B, we're going to be looking for notices, especially like city liens, mowing liens, things like that. Sometimes if the lien hasn't been filed yet, but there's been a notice that's gone out, like especially for property that a lot of people are going to flip, sometimes the house needs to be condemned. And so they'll put that on Schedule B before it's actually a lien. So
okay.
that's important for flippers, especially.
Okay.
And then the HOA information is also going to be on there.
Okay.
Then on Schedule C, we're going to be looking for liens.
Okay.
And I have seen them go up to 32 liens on Schedule B.
Oh my God.
So
And that's why her team, they have
Yes.
to clear those.
Right.
So if you get
right.
payoffs on each, you have to make
Yes.
sure they get address of where to send the checks,
Yes.
and get lien releases on all
Oh
of them.
my God.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see that
And-
delaying a
yeah.
closing.
So for all of that, and we also need, like we said, marital status information. We also need, sometimes you'll see someone with a common name, there'll be like various liens. So we need to get, we need to make sure we get socials or date of births and addresses just to clear off some of that. So depending on, whose name we're searching, it can get really, really nasty really quick. So
Yeah. Okay.
that's what we're looking at for the most part. And then it just kind of depends on where we go from there. There's been
Right.
a foreclosure in place. Sometimes foreclosures wipe out certain things. So it's a very complex,
Right.
as scary as it looks, it sometimes can be.
Yeah. And David, what from your
So from a title perspective, all that it makes sense, and she's
Right.
doing all that behind the scenes.
Right.
From you guys, from you interacting with your clients and what you should have them focus on, in my opinion, is Schedule A to make sure they're the actual owner,
Right.
that they're vested owner. And I would spend all my time on Schedule B.
Yeah.
Schedule C doesn't matter for you guys because
Okay.
title will not issue a title policy until Schedule C items are satisfied.
Oh, makes
so
sense.
that's
Okay.
a catch-all for you guys. You guys
Right.
are safe. Now they're going to
Yeah.
ask questions of your client, sure.
Right.
Give them information, fine. But what you should really look at is Schedule B.
Okay.
Those are the exceptions to your title policy, which means we're covering you for everything except these items.
Got it. Okay.
Most of I'm sorry?
I said survey.
Survey,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
right,
that's
right.
a-
Oh, actually,
Right.
that's a great point you brought up.
Right.
I'll talk about that in a second. But
Yeah.
most exceptions on Schedule B are pretty standard. Pretty
Okay.
standard, right? But you should always review them if there's an HOA thing in there, if there's an easement thing in there, and ask questions of the title team. Why is this here? Why am I not getting coverage for this?
Got
Which
it.
ties into the thing that she just said. I'm a big believer. Anytime a buyer buys anything, they should always get a new survey.
Yeah.
I don't care if the seller has one. I don't care if it was 6 months ago and you want to use it. I don't care if the lender will accept it and
Right.
title will accept it. It creates problems for you if you don't know the four corners of your property.
Right.
It just does. And
Yeah.
surveys are not that expensive.
Right.
It just should be a cost of doing business, in my opinion. And if you get that survey, and if title accepts it, which most times they will, if it's done by a reputable survey company, you will get something called boundary coverage, which is
Right.
hugely important, right?
Right.
Meaning, hey, we are also, in addition to the title policy, ensuring the seller can sell 100% to you and you will own 100%.
Right.
But we will also ensure the four corners and the boundaries. So if there's a fence line offset, if there's an easement issue,
Right.
if someone is maybe trying to adversely possess and take property from you, you'll also get coverage.
Yeah.
So, but you need to get a new survey to do those things. Sometimes you can use an existing survey, but my opinion is always getting a new one
Okay. And why? What's the difference between an existing and a new one?
because things change,
Okay.
right? If I'm selling you my house and I
Right.
had a survey a year ago when I bought it, you don't know if I've done anything different in that year.
Right. True.
Right? And really only surveyors will know that. Now, sure, you could look at the fences, but you're not trained to do that, neither am I.
Right.
It's not like I own a survey company. I do not.
Right.
It's a shameless plug for them. But it really is true that you should get one. So anytime I buy something, I always get a survey. Always.
But you do have the T47 now that you have to write that basically says I didn't change anything, right?
Correct. But then that's a document that you have to go and sue them
Right.
on behalf of that and
True.
fight for that, right?
True.
Why not get it clear from the beginning for $500?
Right.
And not
Except-
have that issue in the future. I mean, you're absolutely correct.
right.
But again, it's just something else that you have to do
Right.
when there's a problem.
Right.
Well, and now also they're saying like, so say you did use David's survey and then you had a claim against a survey company. That wasn't your survey.
That's a
They
great
will
point,
not.
Sarah. Great point. Because I am the survey company's client. You are not.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Unless
they're
you
not going
name-
to, unless you get the name switched. I mean, it's a whole weird.
Right.
Just get a new survey.
Got it. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good advice.
And
yeah.
most surveys aren't expensive. I mean, if you're doing
Right.
cowboy land and you're doing big
Right.
meets and bounds, yeah, they get expensive. I get
Right.
it. But for most lots and blocks,
Yeah.
no big deal.
$500. Right. Yeah. Give or take.
Give or
Yep.
take.
Okay.
I would almost rather you get a survey than get a home warranty.
Right. Same price.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yep. So, okay. No, that's good advice. So that's good. So Schedule B is the main one for me and my clients to look at. Schedule C is going to be taken care of by
Well-
Sarah's people.
I
you
also think,
disagree.
well, to an extent,
Do tell.
I do think, I mean, you want to still make sure if there's two liens on there, that there's two payoffs on your seller side.
Yeah.
Because depending on where you're closing, I mean, it not depending on where you're closing, they should be ordering those. But I have seen in the past where someone has told somebody that, oh, well, I didn't have to pay that back. They did a HUD and they thought, oh, I don't have to pay that. I'm not making payments to that. And I have seen before, they've come to me many times where we go to closing and there's a payoff on there from the existing title company because they didn't realize that, it was actually their clients. And shame on them. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, we're all human.
Right.
And,
That's a good
you
point.
want to make sure that all your payoffs are on there. They're all being paid off.
Right. Okay.
So I still think that's very important because, again, that not often, but it does happen where I'm like having to go back to the prior title company and go, hey, guys, y'all missed a payoff on here. And then they have to file a claim on their title policy.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So take a step back from earlier because we never actually answered my question: is how often are title issues a thing?
She purposefully did not answer the question.
I mean, and if you don't want to tell me, that's fine.
No,
Because
they are-
people ask me that, I was like, I don't know.
They're-
I've never had one
The
happen.
goal is zero.
I know the goal's
The
zero. I
goal
just
is
don't
zero,
know.
But if you don't get title insurance and you did a handshake, there's a lot of things that can be on there. There's child support liens, IRS liens, tax liens. I can't can't tell you how many times people have said, "Oh, well, I never did a DNA test. I don't know if that's my kid or not." I don't care. You're supposed to pay child support. Like, you have a child
Right.
support lien on here. We have to pay it.
Okay,
So, or
So-
if somebody went and stayed, just say David had somebody that went and stayed with him and lived with him for a couple years, and that was their homestead. Guess what? That child support lien could get put on David's
If
house.
my wife is listening, that was not true. Just make sure it's clear.
Jocelyn, call me. It is so true.
So if there is an issue on title and there's something that comes up, who is the one that actually does the work in terms of resolving that issue in terms of Chicago title?
So, certain things are out of the realm of what we do as clearing title. However, we go above and beyond customer service.
Yeah.
We have been on ancestry.com. We've searched all kinds of websites trying to help and search people down. That's not technically what we do as title insurance, but we're trying to help you get to the finish line.
Yeah.
So we have done and helped and pulled as many ways that we can, but sometimes we do need the help of the sellers, and depending on the situation, they may be able to help or may not. But I mean, I can tell you so many stories because, again, I've been doing this for so long, but it takes a village sometimes to close a property, depending on how bad it is.
Right.
So,
And I think what he's also asking is, like, what's the process if something is
If
missed?
something goes wrong, what is the process within Chicago title? Do you just
post-closing.
go, hey, do you just say, hey, here's our attorney team, work with them? Or do we, so someone, and I guess maybe even take a step back from that. If I own a house and then all of a sudden there's some kind of a title dispute, would whoever's disputing just contact me directly? I don't even know how does that happen?
so each situation is very, very different. We just closed one last week that took 2 years to clean up.
Oh my goodness.
And it was the help of everybody.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've thankfully got to the finish line, but it takes a lot sometimes, depending on if there's a death or siblings that we're trying to track down or find, or payoffs that we're trying to get. I mean, we can be very, very creative, and I have done some extremely creative things with the help of our attorneys at times, and got exceptions from our underwriters and stuff to, get things closed and then still kind of clean up behind the scenes. We don't like to do that, but at the end of the day, we're going to do what we can to help our customers and our clients out as much as possible. So it just depends on what the situation is. I don't have one set answer because every situation is different.
I can give you two examples that I've had to deal with on this. From a claim standpoint, I've had it where, like, I'm trying to remember this a couple years ago, where a woman was a daughter of the deceased, and the sellers eliminated her from the heirship affidavit that put them in title, basically saying he didn't have another kid, which was a lie, right?
Right.
So she hired me to help represent her in making a title claim on the title company
Okay.
for closing that deal.
Okay.
So what we did was we reached out to the title company. They have a claims team that's a bunch of lawyers, and that's all they do.
Okay.
And then they investigate the process, see what's going on,
Got
and
it.
then they make a decision.
Okay.
Usually what will happen is if they approve the claim, they will, depending on what's happening, they'll either pay money or sue to protect the interest. Here they paid her fair share, but then what they do is they go and they sue the seller
Oh, wow.
because the seller lied. Right?
Makes
so
sense.
that's what he did on this one.
Yeah.
That's one
Okay.
situation.
Yeah.
Another situation is if you are a buyer and you buy a property, and then all of a sudden the seller's second cousin comes, well, Billy Bob gave me part of that property. Here's this deed, or
Right.
anything, right?
Right.
And let's say title company missed something, the same thing would happen. Buyer would go to the title team and say, hey, I need to make a claim. They would connect them to the claims department, the Department of Lawyers. They would investigate it, and then they would either sue Billy Bob or sue to protect the buyer, or they would pay the buyer.
Got
One of
it.
the two. That's why
Yeah.
buyers have to have this. I mean, it's basically a legal team that protects you for all time.
Right.
That you own 100% of the property at the day you bought it.
Right.
And here's another good thing. It's very, very important, no matter where you close with, that you do close with a big reputable company.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Because say David bought from you and you had something on your title commitment that didn't get cleared off, and then you were a sister company, because we're owned by Fidelity, which is one of the largest title companies in the state of Texas. So if David brings me his title policy from when you guys, exchanged title, well, then I can take that, send it to my examiners. They'll work behind the scenes to get that cleared up because we are a sister company, and you'll still close in time.
Nice.
So-
And without naming, because I don't want to name any title companies, but there are title companies that have gone under. And all the policies that they've issued,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Exactly,
What do you do? And
yeah,
that
it's-
happens. So
okay.
we are big believers. In my law firm, I tell everybody, close with a large title company. Don't go to mom and pops.
Yeah.
Make sure they're backed by the big boys.
Right.
And then your policy has deep roots, is set
Right.
in stone.
Yeah. One thing I'm kind of thankful we don't have to deal with here, speaking of title, because I'm sure it adds an extra level of complexity, is mineral rights. Doing deals, because I could see a lot of people coming back for mineral rights, right? If you strike oil or something, is that
So speaking Schedule B, when we talked about exceptions, that is actually one of the exceptions.
Is
that
it?
your
Okay.
title policy is insuring the dirt, not the minerals.
Okay.
So they specifically clear
they
that
do?
out.
So the minerals are a totally different process, has nothing to do with title.
Totally different beast.
Interesting. Okay, good to know.
And we don't search that either.
Okay.
Now,
so
now our law firm can, and
Yeah.
we can retain mineral rights, we can give away mineral rights, we can
Yeah.
do all that.
Yeah.
But I gotta tell you, most people, unless you have cowboy land,
right.
West
retaining
Texas
mineral
is
rights
Texas.
makes no sense because there are rules, like right where we are right now, if I own that parking lot over there, I can't drop a well
Right.
and start digging for oil. I'm not allowed to. I don't care if I have huge amounts of oil underneath it.
Right.
So
Yeah,
anyone who has a lot and block that tries to retain mineral rights, it's a waste.
Yeah.
It's a waste. But cowboy land, sure, I get
Right.
it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. Okay. No, that's good stuff. I think, is there anything else regarding title? Then we'll kind of switch gears to another topic. But anything else that we haven't touched on that we?
No, I
Yes.
think the only thing that we haven't touched on the title policy is the percentage. It is a little bit less than 1% of your
Yeah.
sales price.
Right.
So
And-
keep that in mind when you're debating on whether or not to get title insurance.
Right. And-
Small portion.
Right. And again,
And it's actually interesting. If you go to the their website, there's a title policy. If you click on it, you see at the very far right,
title rates.
title rates.
Yeah.
And
Boom.
And that is only a table for the first 100,000. But if you scroll
Right.
down to the very bottom, you see that?
Yeah.
That's the calculation in the state of Texas.
Okay.
So it depends on the loan amount or it depends on the sales price.
Yeah.
Or refi if you're going to do a refi, right? Oh, I guess the same thing as a loan. But you go with that, you'd subtract that number, you'd multiply it by that crazy decimal number, and then,
you add a number.
And then that is a title policy set in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
No matter where you go.
Yeah.
That's the premium.
No, that's good. No, it's actually nice to see that there.
Yep.
And I did not know that it's broken up based on this the ranges.
Exactly
so,
right. So someone who buys $1 million house versus a $200,000 house versus a $10 million house, there's going to be difference in the policy based on this.
Right.
Now, Sarah's right. Generally, you're looking a little less than 1%.
Right.
But the algorithm is there.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's nice. All right. Good to know. Okay. All right. Well, the next topic I just wanted to touch on real quick, since I got an attorney here, is the whole NAR settlement, because we're now 2 months into that, right? So we're talking a little bit before we started here. That's actually been fairly calm, I think, in terms of from a realtor perspective. Things seem to be no crazy arguments or anything so far. And it's
Just
actually,
wait. Just wait.
well, I'm sure it's all coming, but but so far we're business is moving along. We've had, I know here, me personally, our business had a little shuffling with some agents and stuff, but for the most part, I think that's actually not bad in terms of getting the buyer's rep agreement, making sure the buyers are represented, that kind of thing. So, and then the discussions with the sellers, exactly how they're paying the commission, who they're paying the commission to. I think it's been a good conversation. So for the most part, I think it's been going good. The one question, I have a lot of questions, but the one question that came up last week, we've had, and actually last few weeks, we've had multiple people for our listings call and want to look at our listings. And the question keeps popping up, do I need a buyer's rep agreement to go open the door to show my own listing? And I've seen a little bit of mixed reaction on that. David, what do you think? Because there's one state of mind that, well, you just be careful, be on the safe side, just get a showing agreement signed. But the other is, well, no, I'm just opening a door as a service to my seller, so I don't need to worry about that. But yeah, so the other side of that is my seller. I'm just doing a courtesy for my seller. I don't want to hinder that by, potential buyer not wanting to sign something. So to open the door. So what are your thoughts from a legal perspective?
I would get them to sign
Just
something.
as, and that's what I've done. I just got it free. I do a free showing service.
Just think of the liability of it, right? If something happens, that you want them signing something so that they're
Right.
not coming after you. I think that is a safe play.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
I'll tell you from the NAR settlement, really, they had talked about a lot of different things, but it really came down to two main points that I think, I'm sure everyone knows now, but one negative and one positive, right? The negative, obviously, is that you can't put the commissions for the buyer's agents on MLS.
Right.
People are coming up with all kinds of creative ways to let them know, right? We've
Right.
heard of them mowing 3% into the lawn. I mean, doing crazy stuff. I think at some point they're going to catch on to that, and they're going to start tightening that a little bit,
Right.
of what you're allowed to do and what you're not. So I do think there's going to be some changes.
Right.
When, I don't know.
Yeah.
The really positive thing with it is the LLC aspect, right? That you can that now you can have your LLC that's fully licensed under the brokerage, and your LLC is the agent itself, right? And the lawsuit names that and states
Okay.
that. The one caveat to it is that the LLC can only operate as an agent. It can't own property. Also, it can't do your wheels and rims business. It's got to be purely for that purpose.
Right.
And the nice thing is you have deductions and some liability protection and some other options available to you.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's okay. That's good. All right. But any other thoughts? Have you heard anything else? Any other? Nothing.
It's strangely quiet.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
The storm is brewing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I
so
thought too.
I don't know.
Everyone kind of reminded me of Y2K, right? I'm like, oh my God, everything's going to be so different. It's just going to be the worst. And it's like,
And what's crazy about it is, in the end, sellers want buyers. So sellers are going to need to incentivize buyers to come look at their.
Right.
So they're going to have to pay anyway.
Right. Yeah.
It's
So-
just they're going to do a workaround.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And let's go a little bit in terms of your guys' real estate in Houston. So I know, Sarah, you said you live in the southern part of Houston, right? Whereabouts are you?
I live in Mount Bellevue.
Mount Bellevue, which is where exactly for those people from the
So it's
Northwest?
between Baytown and Dayton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Baytown and Dayton. Okay, so east. East. All right. So I was, I grew up I grew up in West Texas, but I graduated from Humboldt High School. So we're right across the lake from Huffman, which I think is near Dayton, right? It's kind of over there east. So I'm a little familiar with that. Is that kind of where you were raised?
No, I was raised in South Houston, so
Okay.
a little bit further out, but I love Mount Bellevue so far. So
Yeah.
far, so good.
Okay. And how long have you lived in your house?
A year.
A year.
Year.
Okay. How was the purchase process?
Well, I had to go with the builder's title company, so not so great.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother thing. Builders, title companies, and builders, lenders. Okay, that
but-
must have been frustrating as a title professional.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
kind of set in my ways, so I like
Right.
things done a certain way, and I expect a certain level of customer service, and when they work for the builder, they just don't care.
Right. That's frustrating. Yeah. So, but yeah, you got on through. So
I
you
made
made it.
through. Made it
Yeah.
through. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. And happy with the house. Everything good.
Yeah, I love my house, and the school district is really good. So we're in Barbers Hill ISD, so it's really
Okay.
nice, and kids are doing well. So it's
Nice.
been fun.
How many kids you have?
4,
4 kids. How many? What ages?
23 to 3.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. So you got the whole gamut. That's
oh,
good.
Yeah. It's never a dull day in my house.
So one's all finished up. Another one's about to start
Yeah.
kindergarten here in 2 years. So
Yeah.
that's good. So yeah, we actually just have one that just started college. So and then we have 2 high schoolers. So 2 sophomores and one just as a freshman in college. So
Wow. Yeah.
but yeah, so we're
Yeah.
on the latter end of that. But and David, what part of town are you in?
I'm in the Bel Air, Maryland area.
Okay. And how long have you been there?
7 years.
Nice. Okay. You own your house?
I do.
Okay. And so what made you decide on that area?
Schools and
Yeah.
where we were in the Heights originally, and we wanted
Okay.
to raise our kids in a different area.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. That's good. And was it so that area, I'm assuming, is it going through renovations where homes are getting either?
Oh yeah. Ever since the seasonal lakefront property of that area,
Yeah.
all the homes are being renovated and lifted, and yeah.
Oh, yeah. So is there a lot of flooding down there?
There was
Yeah.
during Harvey, yeah.
Was
It got
there?
hit really hard. Ever since, the mitigation that the county has been doing has been actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So none of the storms we've taken has really flooded us significantly. So that's been great.
Okay. So you were there during Harvey, right?
Yeah.
Did you get flooded?
Yeah.
You did?
Did.
Oh, no.
We had a crazy story. We bought the house, did a full remodel, moved in. 10 days later, flooded. Never flooded in its history, so it was intense.
Oh, my God. Yeah, Harvey was nuts.
Nuts.
Oh,
It
that's
wasn't even
crazy.
that big of a storm. It just sat on Houston.
Right,
You know,
right,
unprecedented amount of water.
right. That's crazy. I'm sorry to hear that. How long did that take to renovate?
The first time, 6-7 months, and then the second time, 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So first time was before you moved in, you were saying?
Correct.
Okay, and then
Right, but
and
that
then it
was when
flooded.
we were replacing cast iron pipes and we were doing
Right,
the big heavy
the
stuff.
whole thing, yeah.
The second time was more. I mean, we took maybe an inch and a half of water. It wasn't
Okay,
a lot, but it
so
was
it's
enough to
yeah.
rip out dry, sheetrock and change
Baseball, all the
floors.
flooring.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Welcome to Houston.
Yeah.
That's
Seasonal lakefront.
right. Yeah. So that's what people always ask me too, because here most of, especially the new areas, are not in floodplains. But people ask you, should I get flood insurance? Like, yeah, you're in
Always.
Houston. Get flood insurance.
I don't care if I live on a mountain in the future. I
Right.
will always have flood
Yeah,
insurance.
it's just you
Always.
just never know.
It's like
right?
title insurance and flood insurance. You know,
Right.
it's-
Well, it's all these people in North Carolina and Georgia, right? I mean, who would have thought that a hurricane would affect them that much? And
They
it's
got
just
destroyed.
completely destroyed.
Horrible,
So,
horrible.
my sister-in-law moved from Florida. She was in the east coast of Florida, Melbourne part of Florida, and just moved to Augusta, Georgia,
Wow.
like 2 months before, thinking don't
down safe.
don't have to worry about hurricanes anymore. And yeah, she didn't have power for a couple weeks. She just got it back. Like all the trees in her backyard. She said, yeah, we used to have a nice tree canopy. She sent pictures, and now you can just see all the neighbors all around because all the trees that fell and everything. So it's crazy.
It's crazy.
But
The
yeah.
power of nature.
Right. Yeah. No, it's nuts. But well, that's good. Yeah, we didn't flood in our house, but it got 3/4 up our yard to where it's like, man.
Close.
But I thought, man,
And you're
happy I got.
sweating and like
But yeah, I was like, but I was happy I had flood insurance, right? It's like at least we got insurance. So
I remember packing towels by the front door thinking that would somehow help. It does
Right,
not.
no,
It does not
yeah.
help. It does not.
Well,
Once
it
the
may help
water's
you.
coming, the water's
right,
coming.
it may help you feel a little bit, but at least I did something, right?
For a minute or two.
Right,
That's about it.
exactly. What else can you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's all I got. I think that's the show. But I mean, otherwise, business good. Business is all good with
Business is
Chicago
good.
Town. So it's kind of an interesting time, right? You got the interest rates. Actually, last week was the most interest rates has risen since April.
Yeah.
So after declining for 5-6 months, actually went up, had a little bit of a jump. So curious to see if that's going to affect anything. But it's been actually pretty steady for a fall in terms of business. So for us, but glad to hear it's going well for you too. What do you kind of just roam around to different offices, or do you have a main home office?
I don't have a main home office. I do go to my Deer Park office a little bit more often just because it's
Close,
closer. But
right.
yeah, I do visit and jump around and all the offices. And if they
Okay.
don't see me for a little bit, then I get in trouble. So it's important for me to keep going between all 5 offices.
Absolutely.
And our law firm office is in the Heights, so that's
Okay.
either I'm there or I'm virtual. Our
Okay.
paralegals and lawyers, we all work from there, and ever since COVID, actually, is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
It became a virtual office, and it was really nice. So,
Right.
we were able to downsize an office space. We use it for appointments, and
Yeah.
otherwise, it's good.
And the name of your business again was Abrams.
So Abrams, Walton Associates.
Walton
So
Associates,
We're known as AWA Law Firm.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. So,
you for
man,
having
a
us.
lot of good information to
Yeah.
digest, and and I'm definitely appreciate your time, and we'll keep sending people your way. And if you need anything from us, please feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
All right, Sarah, David, thanks again. My name is Jim Mulholland with Cyfair Real Estate. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
From the market trades to